Welcome into another episode of Odd Man Rush. Hope you're having a great week. I'm Will Highland, joined by Kyle Diezel. It's July 8th. We're 1 week past free agency and a little bit over 10 days past the draft. This is our first official episode of season two, I suppose. Or, excuse me, season three, I suppose, now that Kyle has joined us. I did fly solo last week. It was not fun. I missed you, Kyle. Kyle, welcome back.
Thank
Glad
you.
we could connect. Can we get a weather report?
It's been sunny the last few days, really hot. I will say that I did get crispy over the 4th of July weekend here. But looks like we got rain ahead for the next week or so. So I'm sad, but excited we had a good weekend at least.
Yeah, I am I am not liking the stickiness of outside right now. It was sunny this morning, pretty nice weather, but this afternoon's been really humid and whatnot, so not in love with that. Okay. I'm also not in love with the fact that we're not going to get hockey for 90 days. But we do have a lot to talk about when it comes to the offseason moves. And we will have an opportunity during, the rest of the summer and the early part of the fall to do some fun things on the pod. But before we get to the fun kind of offseason stuff, we do have to recap the nitty-gritty of the offseason. And, we had picked players that we wanted out of the draft. I don't think either one of our teams got who we wanted. Roger McQueen fell to 10, but the Bruins did end up getting James Higgins, which we did not think was going to happen. We didn't think he was going to last that long. So that's great. Maybe you'll have an opportunity to see James Higgins play next year. He'll be playing in Boston at Boston College. Um, I don't know who the Devils drafted at 52 overall or whatever it was, but I do not think it was Mason West.
It was not.
Yeah, I didn't think so. So unfortunately, we missed out on those picks, but we were right in some of the things about the offseason. We were wrong in a few. So we'll recap what we had right and wrong so far about the offseason. But I think the biggest name going into the summer, Kyle, was Mitch Marner. And Mitch Marner traded rather than hitting free agency. The Leafs traded his rights the day before free agency and got Nick Roy back. And they sent him to Vegas. What are your thoughts on Mitch Marner going to the Golden Knights?
I think this is a great stepping stone for Mitch Marner. I think this is a place where he can now finally become the superstar instead of taking that back seat behind Austin Matthews to prove himself that he can help a team get beyond the second round. I think this also for the Knights adds more depth. For the Leafs, this does take a little bit of the salary cap, not hit for them, but loosen up the belts a little bit for them. But I don't know if this solves any of their problems going forward, as we talked about. And I've seen some podcasts and interviews go along between some Toronto fans of who would you rather keep Austin Matthews or Mitch Marner. I think it would be better to have kept Mitch Marner. Wouldn't have to be paying as much as Austin Matthews. Would have got a lot more back from it. But hey, what do I know? That's what I think.
Yeah, I think the relationship was so soured between Marner and the Maple Leafs, to be honest. Like I don't think there was ever a way that he wanted to re-sign there for another deal. And I think he didn't like the way the media treated him. I don't think he liked being second fiddle to Matthews. I didn't think he liked the narrative around his performance. Um, how he was suddenly always the one that was, crapped on by the local people up there rather than his teammates when they did bad things too. I think that whole situation is a mess and needed a reset. Um, I think there's been some complaints about the way it was processed with Marner almost like negotiating with the Knights before he hit free agency and vice versa. There's stories about how at the Four Nations he was talking to like Golden Knights players about, playing for them, and whether that was Petrangelo or Shea Theodore, anybody else, or even Jack Eichel. I have no idea. I don't know. Um, or it was probably maybe Mark Stone. Because I don't know if I think Mark Stone was on Team Canada. So I think he had a lot of things pulling him toward playing for the Knights. So I'm with you. I think they probably could have gotten a major haul for Austin Matthews, but they're just not going to trade him. And, he's one of he's the face of the he's the face of the league almost, like outside of McDavid. Like he is. I mean, he is, especially up there. Um, and and I'm not a huge Austin Matthews fan. Um, so yeah, I think it was just a bad situation all around, and it wasn't gonna get better if Marner was still in Toronto. So look, he goes to the Knights now, right? This is a team that knows how to win. Um, but it's also a team, Vegas is, that has some financial decisions to make in the future. And I think for better or for worse, Mitch Marner is going to help make those decisions. Or I should say, signing Mitch Marner is going to help the Golden Knights make those decisions. What do you make of John Tavares staying behind in Toronto?
I mean, there's not much else you can really do, in my thoughts and opinions, just because he did go up there after being, I believe it was traded away or go to free
He
agency.
he joined them in free agency in
Yeah,
2018. He
yeah.
chose to go there, yeah.
He needs to be comfortable up there. I mean, he didn't like the original deal from what I heard, and then he decided to go back. I think he's just comfortable where he is. I don't think he wants to make a dramatic change as time his career. Because what is he, like mid 30s right now? I believe.
34, I believe. Yep.
I mean, past his prime. So you're not going to get much out of him. But I mean, for a Maple Leafs team that's already been repeating itself over and over, he hasn't really proven anything. He's been with the Islanders for 10 years. He's been with the Leafs, hasn't had much success. I don't see him as a captain for that team, to be honest. I don't see him being the true role player they need to take the next step. But I think for him, it's mostly a comfort factor of he's there, his family's there, he wants to stay there.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think as time went on, Tavares was more and more likely to stay in Toronto. Like you didn't hear rumors about him wanting out, really. You didn't hear those the way you did with Mitch Marner or with some other players we're going to talk about. So, I think he was probably one of the most experienced players on the potential free agent market. But ultimately it 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 came to a point where they weren't gonna part ways, and it would have been I would have liked to see Tavares on the Bruins, honestly. Like I think you could have signed him to like a 4 year deal at maybe big money, and he could have been at least a stabilizing presence until somebody like James Higgins or Dean Letourneau is ready to be an NHL center. Um, like if you're trying to win the Stanley Cup, does having John Tavares as your two center get you in that conversation? I think so, even at age 34. So I think that in that way, it's a good thing for the Maple Leafs. And I do think them bringing back Nyes and prioritizing Matthew Nyes, and now you have a core group of Nylander, Nyes, Tavares, and Matthews instead of having Marner in that group. Like I think that could prove to be a wise decision for the Maple Leafs going forward. Like, are they a Stanley Cup favorite? No, but I mean, you have to like them at least making the playoffs for the foreseeable future, and I think that's really at this point all you can ask for any team with how competitive the league is. Speaking of competitive teams, Kyle, what's your take on the Panthers? Because both you and I found it unlikely, speaking of Atlantic Division contenders, that the Florida Panthers are going to be able to keep Aaron Ekblad, Brad Marchand, and Sam Bennett. Yet they were able to achieve that. And there's a lot of haters wondering how they made that possible. I have my own take, but how do you think they got it done?
I mean, I think they got done by getting rid of some of their trades away here. For example, Vanacek they traded away, open up some more cap space. But they're also doing it in long-term deals, as you saw. Brad Marchand here is traded for a deal that was what it's like 4 or 5. I mean, I think it's maybe 6 year deal, so it's spread out pretty well over that period of time. So I think it's how they got away with it a little bit. But they're also bringing back this huge core group that we talked about. If they're going to repeat, they had to bring at least two. But if you bring all three back, that's even better. So that's my thoughts. Is they made some space, made these contracts longer, for they can deal it out little by little over time. So when the salary cap does go up each year, they have the money to pay for it.
Yeah, I think that that's a pretty fair assessment. They clearly were looking more at the total amount of these contracts, and the players were willing to buy in and be like, yeah, like I'll take a less AAV, in exchange for a longer term, because it's clear in a league where the contracts are pretty much guaranteed, like they are in the NHL. Uh, it doesn't really matter whether Brad Marchand signs a 4x6 deal or a 3x8 deal. Like he's going to get 24, 32 million, whatever it was, regardless. Um, and for him, he he wanted to be he wanted to be a guy that probably made 100 million in his career. And I think I heard if you look up his career earnings after this contract, he will have had 100 million earnings on the ice in his career. So I think that meant a lot to him too, for somebody that started out as a fourth liner, for example, to get to the point where he's won a Stanley Cup at age, 22 and another one at age 36 or whatever it was. I think that matters to him. And then with Bennett and Ekblad, I honestly think that those are guys where, especially in the case of Bennett, his career trajectory took off when he got to Florida. So why would he risk that? If he can be the second line center, we just talked about Tavares being a second line center. If if Bennett can be a second line center behind Barkov for the foreseeable future, that team is going to continue to be competitive and be in the mix to win Stanley Cups. Similarly, like if Aaron Ekblad is your one of your top defensemen, even at his age, and he's playing with Seth Jones, you know, or Forsling, then I think everything's gonna be okay, right? So I think they were willing to make those changes, or willing to make those commitments to these players because they know that these players have done that, and likewise, the players were willing to stick around in Florida and not test free agency because sometimes the grass isn't always greener on the other side. You could change jobs or change schools or whatever in life, and you think it's going to be a really good opportunity for you, and it ends up like not actually being better than the thing you had before. And I think that was the case with these three guys to an extent as well. Like Brad Marchand wasn't going to go, to the Utah Mammoth. Like I want everybody to understand. I heard so much talk about that throughout the week leading up to the July 1, and I'm like, there's no way he's gonna go play in Salt Lake City, Utah. There's no way that Sam Bennett is gonna leave Florida and go to Toronto, where he's from, where there's immense pressure to win, and where he's gonna join a really dysfunctional organization historically. Or he could stay in Florida where it's nice weather all year. And yes, there's no state income tax, and they could continue to win. So, like, yeah, I think we're in agreement here. I just didn't think that Florida was going to commit to that. I thought Florida might want to leave some space open, but you're right. They spread this money out. They're going to have the cap's going to keep going up, so maybe they don't mind making these commitments. So, we'll see. All right, speaking of another team that made some commitments, the Oilers had to make a huge commitment themselves. Like Evan Bouchard was going to be a restricted free agent. There was talk that he might be offer sheeted, including by the likes of the Carolina Hurricanes. and he needed a contract to play next year. So rather than risk losing him, the Oilers signed him to a long-term deal. What do you think the Oilers are going to do going forward? Because they're in a little bit of a tough spot.
Yeah, they've only got about less than 200,000 of cap space remaining. There's not much they can do, to be honest. They did a lot. They did let a lot of players go. Let Perry go. Let Brown go. Kingsley Berg trade away Kane over to Canucks to open up space. Um, but I don't think this is going to be enough for them to. Yes, they did sign Evans back, but at what cost? Do they have enough for next year? I know we're worried about just this year, but for the future, how in the bluest ocean with less than $200,000 are you going to bring back Austin Matthews? Or not Austin Matthews, sorry,
Yeah, yeah, Connor McDavid.
Connor McDavid here.
Yeah,
How you be able to bring him back with not enough this limited amount of money? You're gonna have to let some of these guys go or trade them away. Like this is to me, this is the year. You either go all in or you're all out next year. Like there's no in the middle grounder. You have to win it all this year. There's no excuses. The issue is they don't have the money to get a goaltender unless they're gonna go over the salary cap, which is what they're gonna have to do. What we've already seen the last two playoff runs, they haven't gone anywhere. I don't see
they're
them
gonna
doing.
have to stash somebody on long-term IR or hope for an injury or something if they're gonna get a better goalie. To your
Correct.
point, like,
I was really thinking John Gibson from Anaheim was going to come up. I thought that's who they would trade for, but didn't happen. So I'm not
yeah,
sure what they're really thinking because we keep talking about over and over again the reason why they're not getting to that next level is they have all the pieces, most of the pieces they need. They just don't have a goaltender and they can't fund the goaltending. I mean, that's the reason why they don't have the playoff success like the Panthers do.
yeah. I mean, they traded Victor Arvidsson to the Bruins. That only netted them like 4 million, and then they turned around and used 10.5 on Bouchard for
Mm-hmm.
a 4-year deal at 10.5. Um, and like Evan Bouchard's gonna hit free agency when he's 29, and when the cap is an insane amount in 2029.
Yeah.
So like, honestly, for the long term, that's a little bit of a band-aid. Like I know that in the short term, you might say 3 to 4 years is a long time, but like when you've got the best player in the world and you've got Leon Draisaitl signed through 2029, chances are that's when they're going to want to sign McDavid for. But like I'm looking at this roster and they freed up the Arvidsson space. They immediately used it on Bouchard
Yep.
and Mangiapane and who they got who was a free agent. I believe he had played for the Capitals before. Um, and then they signed Frederick to a $3.85 million deal for 8 years. So it's like they immediately just started burning the money they saved by trading Evander Kane and by trading Victor Arvidsson.
Yep.
And then I'm looking at their goaltending situation, and they've got Stuart Skinner making 2.6, but I mean, we don't have to beat that drum any more than we already have. And Darnell Nurse and Matthias Ekholm are making like 16 million combined. So I'm or 15.25 combined. So like I'm not understanding how they're going to build a bottom half of their roster with I'm looking at their lines. Their first line's great. Their second line's pretty good. The bottom six is, I mean, mid. The three out of their six defensemen are average at best, and their goaltending is average at best. So, like, are they just gonna hope that McDavid and Draisaitl drag them to another Stanley Cup final? Because that only worked until those two were like went scoreless in the last couple games.
Yeah. I don't know. It's tough. I mean, maybe they're relying on some of the younger players to step up. I mean, I don't know how much young talent they have coming up that they would trust, but it's just sad to see that this is the way it is for the Oilers. But
Well,
they
I
got
think their young talent. I agree. It is sad to see. I think their young talent is the fact that Bouchard was 25,
yeah,
right? And look, I'm not saying they should have let Carolina offer sheet him and lose him for nothing or not nothing draft picks, but and I get that signing Bouchard helps makes it more likely that McDavid wants to stay. But like, okay, they have 200 grand in cap space. Next year, the cap's going up by, I think it's going from 95 million to 102 million. So they're going to get 8 more million just by next year. But at the same time, they're going to need to sign Henrique and McDavid and a bunch of bottom six forwards and a bunch of bottom pair defenders, and they're going to need two new goalies with 8 million bucks. You're not giving McDavid a new contract and doing all those other things for 8 million bucks. Because
No,
let's say McDavid only gets a $3 million raise. Let's say he makes 15 and a half next year. Okay, well, you're only still going to have 5.5 million to spend on a goalie and like six other players, which is just not going to happen. So somebody has to get moved, and I don't know who it's going to be, but it is a terrible way to run a team. People complain about the Bruins all the time and the way they run the team. I would look, the the Oilers have just as many Stanley Cups as the Bruins do in the last 5 years. Okay, just putting that out there for everybody. Like, cool, they made it to the finals twice. Congratulations. Uh, like, but now you're in a situation where maybe you can re-sign McDavid and Dreisaitl and then hope that the rest of the pieces fall into place. But hope really isn't a good strategy in the NHL. And sometimes that's what my Bruins do. Sometimes that's what the Devils do. And when it happens to our teams, we call it out. So I'm going to call it out when it happens to another team, especially one with that kind of talent. I'm just worried they're going to waste it. All right, I think you agree. Okay, so another team, Kyle, what's your take on the Canucks? So not only do they trade for Evander Kane, like we mentioned, they also re-sign Brock Besser uh, right as free agency begins, essentially. They didn't do it beforehand, but beforehand they did sign Connor Garland and Thatcher Demko to extensions. So they're trying to keep the band together. My thesis is they're doing it to try and hope that Quinn Hughes stays. But what's your take on what Vancouver was doing?
I think it's exactly what you said. They're trying to keep the band together, but in all reality, they need to break up the band. Like the signals were there all last year, stemming from your GM and all the drama going on there. So I think for them, they just need to break it up because there's no fresh start without getting rid of everyone. They could get a lot of assets in return from all these players. Talking about Quinn Hughes, Demko, Blaine Brock Besser traded now that they brought him back. I think this would be a huge time for them to start this rebuild, especially with the salary cap going up and this huge free agency market next year. Unless they're going to try to push it, see what they can do this year, and then if it's not where they want to be by playoff time, trade most of these guys away. I mean, Demko's up there in age. Definitely time to
Oh,
trade.
he's still pretty young. I think they should trade him because he's just not gonna
He's
stay
just
healthy.
since ever he got hurt. What was it, 2 years ago in the playoffs or right before the playoffs? He got hurt. He hasn't been the same since. Brock has not been the same player since he was younger. And then Quinn Hughes just isn't happy there. So if your captain's not happy, there's something going on. And we're seeing it through and through. So I think this is the time, whether it's this is your last hurrah to see if you can make it. They're either going to be traders by the trade deadline or they're going to be going all in for this 1 year.
I think they're trying to take advantage of a weak Pacific Division. And what I mean by weak is that it's really top heavy. So like you have Edmonton, who's probably they're good for a 14 game winning streak and a 14 game losing streak in the same season. You also have Vegas, who's going to be really good. And then after that, LA Kings, maybe. I mean, they made a lot of moves. We're not going to talk a lot about them. Anaheim, we're not going to talk a lot about them either, but they certainly tried to swing for the fences with some of their moves. Calgary, maybe, not probably not. Utah is in the other division, but they're going to be competing for a wild card with these guys. So maybe Vancouver can squeak in, but like to your point, I'm looking at their roster. You're right in that Demko is going to be on the wrong side of 30 pretty soon, and he's signed for a while. But I'm looking at the rest of their roster. They have their backup goalie signed through 2030. That's Kevin Lankinen, for those keeping track at home. They have Marcus Peterson signed through 2031. Philip Ronick, their other defenseman behind Quinn Hughes, signed for 2032. They have Connor Garland now signed through 2032. Jake DeBrusk signed through 2031. Brock Besser signed through 32, and Elias Peterson signed through 2032. And by the way, Elias Peterson's making, I don't even know if it's Pedersen or Peterson. Pedersen. Elias Pedersen, their top line center, is making 11.6 million for the next 5 seasons. Or sorry, 6 seasons. The next 6 seasons. So like, sure, they could trade somebody, but who are they trading? Who's taking on that Elias Pettersson contract?
No one, unless you like the Penguins take on what's his name, Carlson's contract.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, that's true. Like who are they trading? Are they trading like Dakota Joshua? Are they trading some of these bottom tier rosters like Drew O'Connor, who's like their third line winger? Like maybe, but I don't know what they're doing. They're certainly trying to keep the band together, as you pointed out, and like Evander Kane, I'm interested to see how he fits into that mix. Because the last few years, it's not like the it's not like the Vancouver Canucks have been known for uh, being a great place to play and a fun place to play. I mean, they fired Rick Tocchet, and then last year was a disaster. So yeah, like I don't know what's going on. Um, so we'll see. We'll see. Back to my original thesis. If I'm them, I think the the most likely scenario is they're trying to keep Quinn Hughes around. But ironically, Quinn Hughes is the easiest contract to deal on that entire roster
Correct.
because he signed through the end of not the end of this coming season, but the one after. So like you could trade him at the deadline for a haul because not only is that team getting him for the rest of the season, they're also getting them for the season after. I don't know what that ad is. I'm not watching that Amazon Prime show, and I'm not buying a Hyundai Tucson. Dude, the internet is beating me up today. It's a story for another pod. Okay. Speaking of contracts and teams that might be willing to move contracts at the deadline, my Boston Bruins signed a lot of guys off the scrap heap.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's two ways of looking at this. As I told a friend of ours, the good news is they signed some people who are capable NHL players. The bad news is none of them are very good. Like
You
they're
basically bolstered your bottom six, but didn't capitalize to get your top winger. But there wasn't many options.
right. Like we're gonna get to Ehlers in a second, but after Marner stayed and Sam Bennett and Tavares stayed and Brock Besser stayed, there weren't a lot of free agent wingers that you could just go out and purchase.
No.
It just wasn't materializing. And so, like I said, like the good news is the Bruins have some players who are capable of playing in the NHL. The bad news is they're not guys that are going to play in the top six, or at least complement David Pastrnak in the way that he needs in the prime of his career. So,
Yep.
like, I do like that they brought back Morgan Geekie. I like Morgan Geekie. I do like that they traded for Victor Arvidsson.
That
Um,
was, that was a good move.
I mean, because giving up a fifth round pick for somebody who's like a known commodity in the NHL is a no brainer. I mean, rarely do fifth round picks ever amount to, all-star potential players. So you're basically trading a somebody who might be good in 6 years for somebody who you might be able to flip for a different kind of pick at the deadline. Like if Victor Arvidsson has a good start to the season, they might be able to flip him at the deadline for a higher pick than that, or maybe even package him with someone else. So like that's the good news.
What's your thoughts on signing Tanner Janet for that 17 million for 5 years?
Yeah, so I was gonna get to that. The other bad news is, and also that's another name I never know how to say. Is it Jeanette? Is it Jeanette?
I don't.
Jeanette? Jeannot? like you said, Jeanette. I think it's Jeanette, but it could be Jano. I've heard both. Um, no matter what his name is, Tanner Jano, I'll just go with that. If that's how you say it, I think he's the kind of guy that like you're trying to bring in to fit like a locker room. Because one of the things that really sucked the life out of the Bruins last year was there was not a lot of leadership in the locker room. Because I don't think McAvoy and Pasternak were ready to do that. They were deferring to Marchand and Carlo. And then once you kind of traded those guys, it really fell off. But like, I think they certainly missed having older veterans around. Like the year before, they had Kevin Shattenkirk and James Van Riemsdyk. The year before that, obviously, you had Bergeron and whomever, Krejci. So I think they really missed having leaders around, like Nick Foligno, for example. Like if Tanner Jeannot can be that kind of person in several years, if he's like just a good guy to have around the locker room, sure, I buy that. The only issue with that is he's been traded a bunch of times. So if he was really a guy that teams couldn't afford to not have in their dressing room or really couldn't afford to not have playing on their bottom six, then he probably would have signed an extension with the Lightning or whoever else he was playing with before. So that and I question the 5 year deal to an extent, but at the same time, like that cap hit is going to be so minuscule in a few years. It really is. So like I'm not that concerned about it. What I'm more concerned about is you have three guys in Fraser Minton, Fabian Lysell, and um, Matt Patra, who are really young, promising players who you've taken a lot of time to develop, especially Patra and Lysell. Lysell was a first round pick who spent 3 years in the AHL. Matt Patra got called up a couple of years ago and has gone up and down. And then Fraser Minton, they traded Brandon Carlo as part of that. So they gave up a lot to get Fraser Minton. So like you've invested a lot in those guys, and right now I don't see how more than one of them is going to end up getting significant time in the lineup next year. So like that, and not to mention you have like you brought back John Beecher, you have like Merritt Hustadinov and this other guy who played in the A last year was really good. I don't remember his name. I think his last name's Blumel. And then you have other guys like Riley Duran and um, there's another guy down on the bottom part of the roster. I think his name's Brad Harrison. So you have all these like other young forwards who like you've invested time or draft capital in acquiring or developing, and I'm not sure how they're going to crack the lineup when Sean Corrali and Michael Easimont and you know Casey Milstad and Sean Corrali are all on this team, and John Beecher. Like I'm just not sure how they're going to grow these guys with all these other guys on the team. But, if someone wants a Sean Corrali at the deadline for a fourth round pick, do you do that? Sure. If someone wants Michael Easimont for a conditional third or second rounder, even, I mean, if we start getting nutty at the deadline, sure, I'll do that. So that's where I'm at with those guys, like, and Tanner Jeannot specifically. Like, I think a lot of people overreacted to the Tanner Jeannot signing because they just hate everything the Bruins do. But like, I'm kind of indifferent on it to answer your question. Like, what do you, as an outsider, like, do you think the Bruins are closer to a wild card spot or closer to a lottery position after this offseason?
Oh gosh. Uh I say 50-50. I say closer to a lottery position.
Yeah. And see, that's what worries me. And that's why I think they're afraid of playing like, oh, Georgi Merkulov is another one, another young guy you've spent a lot of time developing. That's why I think they're afraid of playing some of these kids because like they do not want to bottom out because this roster can't really bottom out.
No.
They paid up the nose for Nikita Zadorov um and Elias Lindholm last summer. And then you have superstars in McAvoy and Pasternak who are signed long term. And the last thing you want them to do is look around and say, can I go win somewhere else?
Well, you also signed your young goaltender too.
And Swayman, right? Yeah, you've got Swayman, so like they can't afford to be a lottery team again. Just because that's how you end up like the Sabres
Yes.
or the Coyotes, who are now the Mammoth. Like you can look around the league. You want to know how many former Sabres are on Stanley Cup winning teams the past few years?
I'm gonna guess it's 5 or 6.
Off the top of my head, I count Ryan O'Reilly 2019 with the Blues. All right, this is without really looking. Jack Eichel with the Knights. Sam Bennett was a former Flame, but Sam Reinhart uh, was a former Sabre. Evander Kane was a former Sabre who's been to two cups with the Oilers, hasn't won one. Am I missing someone? It's am I it's definitely Eichel, Reinhart.
There's a couple of them. I think I saw a stat. It was like all former like Buffalo picks in the last like 10 years who have been traded away have all been in or won a Stanley Cup.
Yeah. Not to mention the Flames, right? Uh Matthew Tkachuk and Sam Bennett.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like,
Oof.
oof.
They've had
Huge oof.
it's just a crazy thing. Buffalo had these players and they didn't build around it. I mean, look, they just traded what's his name to the Mammoths. Um, JJ something. Drawing a
Oh,
blank.
Paterka.
Pacherka, they traded him. It's like, why are you trading away all this young talent? It's like they don't know how.
Dylan Cousins, they dealt him to the Ottawa Senators last year.
It's like, why are they trading all this youthful talent they have or had to be in this constant cycle? Like,
I know it's crazy. I'm finding the list because it's insane. I'm gonna Here are the people that they've drafted, okay? Starting in first round 2016. Um, they traded Brandon Hagel,
you know,
2016 sixth round pick. Ended up playing for the Blackhawks and now the Lightning.
and won a Stanley Cup.
Did he win one with the Lightning?
Yeah, he won one.
He did?
I'm pretty sure Hagel won a Stanley Cup. Lightning.
Even if he didn't, I mean, let's see. This is not great content, I'm sorry. He made it to the Stanley Cup with them. They did not win.
So
That
he's
was
made,
in 2022.
like I said, made it or
Still, yeah. Casey Middlestat. Did he go with Colorado or was that with a different? No, because he wasn't on Colorado that early. Still, now he's another guy drafted top 10, not on the team anymore. Rasmus Dahlin, he's still there. Okay, good for him. Uh, let's see who else. Dylan Cousins traded, didn't win a cup though. I feel like there's more. I feel like it didn't go back far enough. Oh yeah, of course, Jack Eichel, 2015, won a cup. Um, Sam Reinhart, 2014. So they drafted Sam Reinhart number two overall in 2014, and Jack Eichel number two overall in 2015, and both of them won Stanley Cups for other teams. So I think we'll just leave it at that. So that's my fear with the Bruins is don't go down that road, right? Like don't go down the road where you make your stars unhappy or down the road where like I mean, I don't want Matt Poitras to be asked to be the number two center either because like then you're asking a guy to be on a team that's going to suck and he's going to be like, this is terrible. I don't want to be here. You guys screwed up my development. This team sucks. I'm leaving. And then he goes and wins the Stanley Cup with another team. Like you don't want to do that either. So I think the Bruins are trying to thread the needle. Um, we'll see how effective it is. Okay, speaking of Eastern Conference teams, and our favorite teams, we're gonna wrap up with your Devils, and then we're gonna talk about the Rangers and Hurricanes in the Metro. So give me a couple minutes on how you feel about the Devils heading into the rest of the offseason.
Yeah, I think they did some great job of not going out to spend lots of money just because it is the year of Luke's contract coming up. So they need to get a deal done. So to make sure they save some space, they went out and get a couple guys from Chief. They got Connor Brown here. I forget what they signed him for. I think it was like a 3 year, maybe like a couple million, maybe like 2 or 3 mil,
I'm gonna
which is
find
phenomenal.
out.
And then they also got oh, what's his name? Can't remember his name, but they're good. Two guys they signed, two forwards. Going to add some bottom six depth for their forwards, which is going to help
Cody
them.
Glass. You got Cody Glass as well.
Cody time back. I liked him how he played last year when we traded for him. I do think it was good to bring him back. And this is a place where he can develop well and be a part of the system. He was a reliable scorer. He did have some spots. He was a former first round pick, I believe, by the Knights. So that should help us out. Not sure if that's going to help us without even with Jack Hughes. We also got Jake Allen back here for $1.6 million for a 5 year contract, which I thought was a steal. Oilers, I don't know what you're doing here, but you had a chance and you let slip.
Is
Yeah,
Jake Allen better than Stuart Skinner?
well, he had better stats than Markstrom last year, so I think that tells you all you need to know.
That's true.
So
Yeah,
I
I mean they could. I mean that. Yeah, he was sitting there. Wow.
yeah, so I do think that's a huge bump for us. I mean, I really do wish that we got to see Nico Dawes play a little bit more, just because I do think he is growing to be a really great goaltender. But I'm okay. I'll pump the brakes on it. I'll let the two older goaltenders take their spots for now. But I
You
mean,
can always trade that contract. That Jake Allen contract is easily tradable.
oh, absolutely. So we'll see how the season plays out with a healthy Jack Hughes. Now he's had both surgeries done for both shoulders. So hopefully he's ready and lock and loaded. My biggest concern going into this offseason is scoring depth. I'm not sure we really answered that question.
Oh,
But
certainly not. Same with the Bruins, or just like the Bruins.
we didn't, but we kept the cap space, which we need to do to sign Luke Hughes back. I'm hoping we don't overpay for him just because he's a great talent. I just still think he has a lot to develop before he kind of
Yeah.
gets there.
You're gonna have 14 million in cap space next year if nothing else changes roughly. Like,
Correct.
and so you're gonna need to probably spend seven, or maybe not that. That's a little bit too much. Maybe like four or five on Luke Hughes for a nice bridge deal.
Correct. I mean,
Just like what we did with Mason Lowry, you're gonna have to you're gonna have to sign Luke Hughes to like a 3 year deal at like 4 million next year.
yeah.
You're gonna be able to do that. The big
Oh,
question I have for you about the Devils, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to hear your take on this.
yeah.
Do you think do you think they entertain trading Hamilton if the season doesn't go as planned next year?
I think you trade him, and I think you trade Plot. You
Yeah.
trade. I think you trade Dougie first, just because he does have that huge contract and is coming to an end. He has also been injury prone the last few years, so which hasn't helped up. I think most of his career has unfortunately been very injury prone. Him being also a former Bruin, as you know, hasn't had a full attainable season. Yes, he's a great offensive threat, but I think his injuries are starting to catch up on him. I'm seeing a little bit.
Definitely.
And I personally think it's going to happen that Quinn Hughes is going to be a Devil here. I'm not sure when it's going to happen. He's talked about he wants to play with his brothers. I'm not saying it's going to happen this year, but if you take his basically what he's getting paid, get Luke Hughes for it, trade a few picks, I'd be happy to take Quinn Hughes and have all three brothers on the same team. It'd just be like the Jonas brothers reuniting back
Oh
in.
my goodness.
So let's go
Okay. All right.
happen. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, Dougie is taking up a huge contract. Same with Palat. They are two much older players, so I think it'll be time to see them move along and start getting some fresh blood in the system. I mean, yes, our other issue is our farm system. A lot of our younger talents, great defensemen we've picked in the first few rounds. So, like I said, my big concern is goal scoring. I don't think we have a lot of depth even in our farm system for goal scorers at such a young age.
Yeah, I'd be concerned about that too. Um, okay, I want to wrap up as quick as we can because I'm sweating in this room, and It's been a long day. But three quick things. First thing, do the Rangers excite you? They went out and spent money on Gavrikov. I'm not really excited for them.
Just replacing Miller. I mean, they're trading him down to Carolina. I think they made themselves. I mean, look, they got rid of everyone. I think it's a fresh start for them. I don't know what to expect from them this year. I expect them to kind of be a potential wild card team. Maybe it's in that mix for the
Yeah.
Metropolitan.
I think their top six is really good.
Yeah.
They brought Kyle back. JT Miller's there. Trocheck, Panarin, Lafreniere, Zibanejad, all there, good. They basically swapped Keandre Miller for Gavrikov in their lineup per
Yep.
se. And then they have good goaltending. So yeah, I think they'll be back. I think they'll be better next year, and they've got Mike Sullivan now. Um, Hurricanes, Ehlers took a little bit longer to break. Seems like he only wanted to go to Carolina or Washington. Ended up choosing the Canes. Somehow the Canes still have 10.6 million in cap space. They have a bunch of guys signed for a long amount of time. They don't have a significant impact player who's going to be a free agent any sooner than 2 years, with the exception of Freddie Anderson and uh, and Mark Stahl, who both of whom are kind of like on the back end of their career anyway. So I mean they've committed to Aho, to Ehlers, to Svechnikov, to Seth Jarvis, to Kotkaniemi, even to Taylor Hall, even to guys lower on their roster like Carrier. They've got Keandre Miller signed to a really long extension or deal, I should say. They've got Slavin signed long term. It's not going to be free agent for another 7 years. So like they've got all these guys in these really um, what's the word I'm looking for? Cost-effective contracts. But I
Yep.
guess my question for you is like, is it going to matter? Because we see the same old story from Carolina every spring. They make the conference final, they push, but they end up getting beat up in the playoffs. Like, is it going to matter?
I mean, they did get their top goal scorer that they've been looking for a few years now, which I think is a great thing for them. However, they are a defensive team, so
Well,
offense
they're
comes.
actually not. They're more of an offensive team. But anyway, continue.
Well, they play off their defense, but doesn't solve the issue of kind of what the Oilers we've talked about. Goaltending, they had injuries, goaltending, and their issues. They do have the cap space to go out and get a goaltender. I'm not saying there's one right now, but if there comes push to shove, um, they've got to do something to get a goaltender. That's what we saw in the playoffs. That's what carried the Panthers. That's what carried them through basically the playoffs. Didn't matter who they played against. But as we saw in the playoffs, they also beat up on the Metropolitan Division, which they've done all year already. Which I expect them to do again. So it's like, how do you make that next step or get over that hurdle of being the Panthers, being Toronto, beating the Lightning versus being the Devils, being the Rangers, who are teams that you beat consistently, who
Right,
are
right.
who are contenders.
Yeah, who are you? Can you beat Florida? That's the question. That's the
Yeah,
question now for Carolina. Can you beat Florida? If the answer is yes, great. You have a really good chance of winning a cup. If the answer is no, still, you're going to be right where you are for a long time,
yeah.
unfortunately, because you have
The
all
way,
these guys.
the way I see it right now, the answer is no until they figure out their goaltending situation. I'm going to go with no.
And I wouldn't, if I was a betting man, I'm not. I would say you're going to end up with Carolina, Florida in the East Final again.
Yep.
Yeah. Because, I mean, look, Carolina's a really good team. They're going to be really good, and they're going to be good for a long time. Because they found a way to get to. They've done a really good job of organizing this team around the salary cap. They're going to
Correct.
have a lot of room. They're going to be able, if they want, to take a swing for 97 if he gets there. They're going to be one of the few teams that I would say have a chance to land McDavid. They're going to be one if McDavid becomes a free agent. They're going to have the nucleus around to say, Connor, look around, dude. Like if we can figure out a goaltender, the rest of the team is there for him. How crazy would that be if Taylor Hall and Connor McDavid win a Stanley Cup at the end of their careers with Carolina, um, after being drafted number one overall in Edmonton, 5 years apart? That would be wild. But hey, Nick Ehlers, I think it's a good signing for them. I joked with somebody else. He's the perfect Carolina Hurricane. He played for the Carolina Hurricanes of Canada, which are the Winnipeg Jets. Now he gets to go down there and play for the Carolina Hurricanes of the real facets, which is the ones that play in North Carolina. Okay, speaking of regular season giants, like the Hurricanes and the Jets. Last thing, regular season's expanding to 84 games. What are your thoughts? I I I have a thought, but I don't think we're going to notice it much unless they do what I'm about to say. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to do too much. I mean, they've already done it before in the past. I don't see it playing an effect too much on anyone unless it's just to heighten the playoff excitement to teams playing it. As long as it doesn't turn into like some play-in tournament kind of thing, I'm not going to see it. I'm not going to be affected too much by it. But if it does get rid of a few preseason games, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Here's here's my take. Yeah, they're going to shorten the preseason. All right. I don't love shortening the preseason because for guys who are on the roster bubble, like a lot of the Bruins roster, the preseason is the only way they end up getting eyeballs, in game action against other opponents. It's like, I mean, I'm not a scout, I'm not in the room, but like, I think it means more sometimes having preseason games for people like that. But anyway, I'm with you. I don't think we're going to notice it. The only thing we're going to notice probably is that unless they make a change in the divisions, what good is it having the divisions? And what I mean by that is they focus a lot on the playoff format, having the divisions. We're focused on, the top three get in, then you've got two wild cards. But yet you only play three, sometimes four games against your divisional opponents out of 82.
Correct.
So I think what needs to happen is the following, and I jotted this down. I think you need to have, as long as there are 32 teams, I think you need to have 42 games in your division. I think you need to play almost half the season in your division. Because
Wow.
four because 42 is half of 84. And you have um, seven other teams in your division. So if you play them six times, you can't play yourself. That's 42 games. You play three on the road and three at home. So if you're the Devils, you're going to Madison Square Garden three times, and the Rangers are going across the bridge to Newark three times. If you're the Bruins and Leafs, you're doing the same thing. And then what I think you do is you have 16 games against the other division in your conference. So we'd have 16 against the Metro if you're the Bruins, two each, home and away against the other eight.
Mhm.
So that gets you to 58. Then you have 16 games against the other conference. So you have one game. So like this year, the Atlantic is playing the Pacific and the Atlantic teams are traveling to the Pacific.
Yeah.
The following year, the Pacific teams are traveling to the Atlantic, and then you move on like they do in the NFL. They like rotate every few years.
Yeah.
You're playing every team, but you might play the Central at home and the Pacific on the road, or vice versa if you're the Metro Division or the Atlantic Division. That way, you're not going on a West Coast road trip to Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, and Seattle, and then another one to Anaheim, Vegas, San Jose, and LA, and vice versa. So you only play the West teams once, and you only play the East teams once if you're in each one. I think that all makes sense to everybody. So that gets us to 74. That leaves us with eight more games. Then what I think you do is um, you add rivalry games with teams in the other division of your conference. So if you're the Bruins, maybe you add an extra game or two against the Rangers because that's like an original six rivalry. Or if you're the Red Wings, you add a game against like I don't know Columbus because it's closer to you, and even though the Red Wings are in one division and the Blue Jackets are in the other, that's become a little bit of a rivalry the last couple of years, Michigan and Ohio, etc. And then maybe you do like a Carolina and Florida or Carolina and Tampa, or they'll do like a Vegas and Salt Lake City, or Winnipeg and uh, Calgary or something. So you like do some cross division rivalries to fill in the remaining 8 games, and then that's it. That gets you to 84. You can't put too much of an emphasis on divisions and then like only have like 4 games against the Leafs all year. Like if you're the Bruins, but yet the division means so much in playoff seeding. That's my take. What do you think about that?
No, I agree with it. My only take is I think you should play everyone in the West at least twice, one home, one away. That's my only difference I would make. I do agree. Even if it does mean you take away an extra game or two in division, I just hope they do a better job compared to last year of not playing everyone in your division before the new year. So, for example, the Devils were done playing both the Caps and the Hurricanes before the new year even started. So then you're not seeing those teams into the playoffs potentially, which I think is a little chaotic to happen. I think you should see your whole division more sporadically throughout the season, especially those who are who are going to be playoff teams. I mean, we weren't sure about the Cavs, but Carolina, you expect to always be there for right now, but like you shouldn't be seeing them November, December, and not see them till the playoffs potentially.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, I agree. Like that happened to the Bruins too. I feel like in the first week we played like random West teams. And then all of a sudden all of our like divisional games were like sandwiched into like 2 weeks right before the Four Nations or right after the Four Nations, one or the other, I can't remember. And like the schedule was just all out of whack. So like if they're not going to change the schedule in terms of like where are the extra 2 games coming from? Like if you're going to play the West teams, if you're going to have 32 out of your 84 teams, excuse me, if you're going to have 32 out of your 84 games against the other conference,
Mhm.
then the other, 52 need to be like really dedicated and well thought out throughout the year so that you're playing them, frequently throughout the year and they're not just all shoved into one week.
Correct. I
Because
do
like I
have,
feel like we never played the Hurricanes last year, and then like the last week of the season, once the season was practically over, we played
yeah,
the Devils and the Hurricanes like to end the year. We had
yeah,
like barely seen them all year.
great. And I do agree with you breaking up the getting rid of the divisions. I think they should just go back to a East and West, just how they do it, based off just the points. I think it's just smoother. I think it's easier. I think it's cleaner to do it that way. But I think it makes it more competitive. It's kind of similar to what you're doing with the wild card spots, you can say.
Yeah.
But let's just do it as a whole group. Just do East
Yeah.
West based off
Yeah.
points.
If they're gonna
Have
make the division a set bracket, then you should play them a lot. You should play them 6 times like I have instead of four. Like you should have those extra games. But if they're not, then sure, keep it as is. But like right now, it's not working. They can't have the schedule barely, barely again having games against your division, and then make it so that the division is the most important thing.
correct. And
Like,
then why aren't they playing each other more? If it's divisions don't matter, then scrap it all. Just do East versus West. Everyone plays.
yeah. Like we played I think the Rangers 3 times or the Flyers 3 times, but we only played the Florida Panthers 4 times. But those
Yeah.
Panthers games were more important than the Flyers games because we're in the division with the Panthers and the Lightning.
You're from them because then if Flyers get it, great. It doesn't affect you in division. But against the Panthers, it does matter because
Yeah.
it's a point you steal from them.
And if you're gonna have 2 wildcard teams still, or if you're gonna have 8, if you're gonna keep the current playoff format, and you're still gonna have 2 wildcard teams, then you can still have those like 24 combined games against the other division in your conference because that does matter. It
Correct.
really mattered in the East last year. So anyway, that's my take. Um, I'll give you the last word.
Mm, I don't think I have anything except we have to unfortunately go 90 plus days without any hockey, like you said. Um, but hopefully we'll get some more exciting news over the summer about things going on in the hockey world. Otherwise, it's going to be a long 9 months or 90 days.
I agree. Yeah, don't tell me about long 9 months. It goes by a lot faster than you think. All right, I was born premature for all those who didn't get the joke. All right, we'll be back at the end of July probably. But until then, hope you all have a great rest of your week. That's Kyle Diesel. I'm Will Highland, and this has been Odd Man Rush.